What's up, everyone? As you can see, the studio is nearing completion. I put up a few more of these sound panels, and good God, is it sounding spectacular in here. So I'm really excited to get to recording some vocals and putting out some new music out on Spotify, man. It's going to be cool. Anyway, lately I've been falling back in love with this thing right here. This is my Ernie Ball Music Man Cutlass. Now, when I first got this guitar, the first thing I noticed was how similar the sound and feel of this thing was to a lot of the vintage Stratocasters I'd tried before. There's nothing that's really exactly like any vintage guitar, especially since most all vintage guitars are just slightly different anyway. However, as I've been playing around with this thing, I've been doing some digging into some guitar history, and I found out some stuff that's pretty damn interesting, man. When Ernie Ball initially came out with these, my first thought was, okay, I guess they're making a Stratocaster. What I didn't realize is what they were actually doing was something that Fender has been trying to do for decades. So to understand what this guitar actually represents, it's important to understand where this guitar comes from. And for that, we need to talk about Leo Fender. Leo Fender started the Fender Guitar Company in 1946, and in 1954, they came out with a radical new body design called the Stratocaster. Now, through the late 50s and early 60s, the Fender factory was putting out guitars that would later go on to be legendary. Guitar players like Eric Clapton, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix, and many others all used Stratocasters for the great majority of their work. Around May of 1965, Leo Fender sells the Fender Guitar Company to CBS. When Leo sold his company, he signed a 10-year non-competition contract, which means that he couldn't just sell the Fender Guitar Company to CBS and then go start a new company and start competing with Fender. During this time, Leo started a new company called CLF Research Company. This is where Leo would come up with a lot of the designs that you see today in not only Music Man guitars, but G&L guitars as well. In fact, the guys I know over at Music Man actually told me firsthand that this guitar is not actually a copy of the Stratocaster. It is actually an original design by Leo Fender himself. Around this same time, CBS starts to get rid of a lot of the original factory workers, and they started replacing them with people who were either cheaper labor or had a more collegiate background. When a lot of these guys get pushed out of Fender, they end up going to CLF to work with Leo. Out of that, a small startup guitar company emerged called Trisonics. Now, it's uncertain as to why or how the name changed, but it's told that Leo didn't really like the name Trisonics, and so whether it was Leo himself who came up with the name or the team of people that came over from Fender, the name would eventually change to Music Man. Now, it's important to note that Leo was always interested in innovating and making the newest, best product he possibly could. And he was always interested in making the guitar more effective for the guitar player. This is something that when Leo sold his company to CBS, he was no longer really able to do at Fender. Now, another important thing to understand is the reason why early 60s Stratocasters and 50s Stratocasters are so valuable is because there seems to be some sort of quality within them that Fender never seemed to recapture. And it was that quality that made them the favorite guitar of some of our favorite guitar players. Now, obviously, I have some Fender guitars here that I play, and they still make good guitars, but they never really regained that magic that they had in the early 60s. And that's where in the 1970s you start seeing Fender creating reissue lines of guitars. However, I've played a lot of reissue guitars, I've played a lot of custom shop guitars, and I've played a few vintage guitars because, I mean, I don't have any vintage Fenders. They're like $100,000. But, you know, I've been to a few shops that had them, and I've gotten the chance to experience what their frequency response feels like, what they play like, how they feel in your hands. And this guitar is shockingly, I don't know what the term would be to use, but I guess you could say authentic. Whereas some of the modern custom shops, even if they're a really, really good recreation of a vintage Stratocaster, a lot of them don't quite have that mojo in them. You know what I mean? And somehow, Ernie Ball has figured out a way to produce a guitar that, in all honesty with you, is the kind of guitar the Fender Guitar Company would have created in the early 1960s and late 1950s. This is essentially a 1962 Stratocaster for the modern guitar player. And I'm going to show y'all exactly what I mean. And while I do that, I figured I'd show y'all these cool new lights that I got. Check this out. Right? Okay. Alright. So let's play some guitar here, shall we? This right here, man, this is a player's guitar. The overall frequency response of the pickups is just fantastic. Some of you sticklers out there might be like, it's not exactly like a vintage Stratocaster, but I don't think they were trying to recreate a 1962 Strat here. I think what they were trying to do was pay homage to those early Stratocasters, but also advance it in ways that Leo Fender himself was trying to take the Stratocaster into the new modern era. One of those things that Leo Fender was attempting to do was, if any of y'all have seen a G&L guitar before, you can notice that they have split pickups. And so they'll have what look like single coil pickups if you took them and split them down the middle and just took half of it and lowered it, right? What Leo was attempting to do there was eliminate the hum that was often created by single coil pickups. What's interesting is that he eventually came to the conclusion that those split pickups weren't quite as necessary if you installed a battery and made them active pickups. I just thought that was interesting because, you know, at first glance, you might think, wow, you know, that's kind of sacrilege to put active pickups in a battery in something you're trying to make authentic. When in actuality, that's exactly where Leo Fender was envisioning his creation to go. Now let's put some drive on this thing and show y'all what this baby can really do. I am almost speechless as to how freaking badass these guitars are, man. Like, I know they've been out for a couple years, but I feel like they haven't quite gotten the buzz they deserve. I am telling y'all, if anyone is looking to go pick up a Fender Stratocaster, you absolutely need to try one of these first, because they captured some magic in this thing, man. Now, what's funny about it, too, is that when I say that I believe Ernie Ball designed this guitar to be the 1962 Stratocaster for the modern guitar player, I don't think they were trying to be subtle about it, man. Because there are a few things that tell me that they were definitely going to pull on the nostalgia strings and the heartstrings of the vintage guitar lovers. Firstly, on mine, I took the little ashtray thing off that it comes with, but they do come with ashtrays. If you go on Music Man's website or if you see them at Guitar Center, typically they'll have a little ashtray right here, which is straight out of the Fender playbook from 1954, man. Secondly, Music Man decided to put the truss rod adjustment right back down here at the bottom of the neck where it was back in the 1960s. Thirdly, this neck right here, this fretboard, is what would be called a slab board. In 1959, Fender switched over to entirely making rosewood fretboard guitars. The earliest of those rosewood fretboards were called slab boards because they have a flat point at which the rosewood would connect to the maple neck. Eventually, Fender would change that, but I think it's something that's just so cool and so subtle. No one would ever even notice it unless you were a real guitar nerd like me. But I think it's so cool that Music Man decided to go ahead and put a slab board on this thing, paying homage to the original Fender Stratocasters that started it all. And beyond that, they've taken it to a place that is farther than I think any Stratocaster's ever gone, man. And the last reason I say that this is a 1962 Stratocaster for the modern guitar player is because of how Music Man is as a company. While I do have the pleasure of being one of Music Man's artists, I'm not getting paid to make this video. I'm making this video because I think this is some cool, crazy shit. But I gotta be honest with you guys. It seemed like whenever there was a guitar company like Fender or Gibson or any guitar company that made some really magical guitars, it's because they had their finger on the pulse of the artist, on the pulse of the guitar player. They knew what the guitar players wanted because they actually asked. And they put out guitars that had those things. Now, I don't know if anyone was necessarily asking for another version of the Stratocaster. I know that there are thousands of them out there, but it kind of seems like Ernie Ball saw Fender trying to recreate this one magical guitar, and they said, hey, what about this right here? And my opinion, man, just about cut Fender's damn head off with this Cutlass right here. Now that I know about all this history behind Music Man's origins and the creation of this guitar, and from everything I know about Music Man as a company, it truly feels when I hold this guitar like I'm getting to experience a glimpse at what it would have been like to hold an early 60s Stratocaster back in the heydays of the Fender Guitar Company. So anyway, you'll probably be seeing a lot more videos of me playing this guitar right here, but I'll do more videos showcasing all of the guitars I have, because I do have more than I need. But with that, that's the video. So I hope y'all have enjoyed this. Peace out, guys.